What's up, cool people? I'll confess it's been way too long that I've spent working on this video, but I've been busy with things. And this is not exactly my typical, compilation video, post playthrough of a game. But honestly, when it comes to the EDF games, one of the things that stands out the most to me is just the enemies and the different ways that they kind of come at you, different combinations of them. The game, in a sense, almost tells its story partially through the enemies that you face. And just, the ever-mounting threat of those enemies. But, with that in mind, I thought I would kind of put together, an enemy list, if you will. It's maybe even somewhat of a guide. But basically, I wanted to highlight all the different enemies in EDF 2017. Yes, 2017, even though I've already finished Insect Armageddon as well. I'll get to that one later. But all the enemies from EDF 2017, I wanted to go through, list them, say a little bit about them, maybe give some tips on how to defeat them, and if it's relevant, when it's even possible to defeat them, so unlike I did, when it's impossible to take down a certain enemy. So, that's all the more explanation I guess there really is as far as what's going on with this video. So, yeah, let's just get right to it. Here's my EDF 2017 enemy list guide thing. Alright, so first off, we've got the black ants. They're the first enemy you encounter, and they really kind of set the tone for the rest of the game. They're large black ants. They can attack in two different ways. They can either bite you, or they can, spit some sort of acid at you. And really the acid is the far more dangerous part of what they can do. But for the most part, unless there's, an overwhelming number of them, they're not going to be too much of a problem unless you're on, the highest or second highest difficulty, maybe. Then the second enemy you face in the game is the gunship. It is a flying enemy, so using something like missiles or maybe a sniper. Missiles are definitely the best option for taking care of these because, the homing helps keep track of them. These are quite agile as well. And yeah, it's going to be really difficult if you're trying to use any kind of close range weapon. So really long range, maybe mid range is okay, but longer range weapons are going to be your best option against the gunships, especially missiles with their homing ability. But the gunships appear in Mission 5, and while they might be the most basic flying enemy, having a lot of them at once can be a bit of a problem because they use these, kind of laser attacks that are honestly quite difficult to avoid. Alright, up next we have carriers, aka UFOs, aka dropships. The reason they're sometimes called dropships is because they drop other enemies on you. They might technically appear first before Mission 7, but you can't actually attack them or do anything like that until Mission 7. In any case, the way to defeat these is actually you have to wait until they open up the hatch at the bottom that releases the other enemies, and then you have to attack that spot on the ship. These things literally will not take any damage any other way. Has to be from the hatch. So, if you don't manage to do that, these things can cause some problems, because they just keep endlessly dropping more enemies on you. Okay, so now we get to what are called hectors, aka walking arms. And they get that name from the, arm cannons that they use to attack. Technically, there are a couple of different varieties of them with different combinations of the arm cannons, but otherwise there's no like visible difference, and there's really the same strategy overall to fighting them anyway. So I'm just going to talk about them all at once. You first see them in Mission 9, and the best thing really is to try and keep your distance from them and hit them at long range with a sniper or some missiles or rockets or something like that. Because these things move very slowly. As long as you have room to maneuver around, it's going to be difficult for them to catch up to you. So, yeah. That's really the main strategy. You can damage them up close and still stand somewhat of a reasonable chance if it's just like one or two of them, because anytime you hit them, they kind of get staggered and like their giant, tall robot body physically like jolts around with each hit. So their attacks are a lot more likely to miss if you're consistently hitting them. So now we skip ahead to a few more missions to the spiders, which are my absolute favorite enemy in this game. Can you hear the sarcasm? Okay, but seriously, these things, they can jump at you and actually hurt you just by jumping at you. And they also tend to shoot webs, which that is really the main issue with these spiders. Because the webs that they shoot not only deal, like, steady damage over a short period of time, but it also slows you down. So if you get hit with multiple of these at once, suddenly you're barely moving anywhere. Meanwhile, other spiders nearby, you know, are joining in the attack, and it's really easy to get overwhelmed by these things. So, yeah, you're going to want to take them out really quickly. Especially if there's a lot of them. Fortunately, they don't take that much damage to kill. But, yeah, you do not want to give these things any kind of a chance. Okay, so now we get to the first, like, really big enemy that you might consider a boss of sorts. It first appears in Mission 14. However, you do not actually get to defeat this thing until Mission 34. So, yeah, any missions in which you see it before that, you're not going to be able to completely destroy the thing. You might be able to, like, destroy certain parts of it that, like, shoot lasers and stuff at you, but this walking fortress is, like, that tough. Like, you have to get that far into the game before it'll even give you a chance to defeat it. So, on the whole, just maybe don't get close to it until that point. It will shoot some lasers and things at you, possibly even a little bit more, you know, depending on which mission you're in. But the fact of the matter is, you can't defeat it completely until Mission 34. So don't try and, like, find a certain weak spot or anything like that to try and get rid of it before then. It's not going to work. Alright, another big enemy. This one is known as Valak, aka a Dinomech. It looks like Godzilla. It somewhat attacks like Godzilla, at least with, like, the fire breath and stuff like that. But for the most part, this one didn't actually give me too much trouble. As long as you use missiles or something while it's moving, those should still be able to, you know, home in on it. And then once it stops moving, they can hit it for, you know, some extra damage. And otherwise, you probably want to use a sniper and keep your distance as much as possible. It will sometimes attempt to get close to you because it moves around. But in any case, this thing appears in Mission 18. There's like one other mission where there's two of them later on. and then I guess a third instance of like a modified version of that, but we'll get to it later, because it's different enough that is worth having its own notes. And 3 missions later, we get to the first appearance of the Red Ants in Mission 21. Now, these ants do not have the acid-spitting ability that the Black Ants have. So there is that. However, the Red Ants are way, way tougher than the Black Ants. And that makes it a lot easier for them to surround you and then bite you. So that can be a bit of a problem. I actually struggled a bit with Mission 21 because of that fact. So, yeah, these things are pretty dangerous. Not the worst enemies, but pretty dangerous if you allow a lot of them to get close to you. Alright, so now we skip to Mission 28, where the Queen Ant appears in this game. And technically, this is the last mission of a set of 4, I believe, that are all called the Descent. Which you're pretty much going down underground into a giant Ravager nest and ultimately getting to the Queen Ant. You're not really going to see the Queen Ant the majority of the time that you're fighting it, because it has this just like radiating attack of a sort. It looks kind of sort of like the Black Ant acid, but it's just so widespread. You pretty much can't avoid it, and it just slowly chips away at your health. But you can tell that it's the Queen Ant once you kill the thing, because it's even larger than the other regular Black Ants. And because it's in this mission, obviously. So now we have our second instance of an enemy that you cannot defeat when you first see it. The mothership first appears in Mission 30, looking like it's going to land to try to refuel or do something like that. In any case, there's not a whole lot that happens with it in Mission 30. There might be some lasers and stuff that it shoots out, but it's generally nothing that is too problematic. It does get a lot tougher in Mission 52, but I'll get to that later. Which, that, by the way, is the final mission of the game. So, ultimately, the mothership is actually, like, the final boss of the game. But, not yet in Mission 30. Okay, so I think I mentioned that the Walking Fortress is defeated in Mission 34 earlier on. This is a little peek at when you actually get to fight it and destroy it. It does have a couple of different phases throughout the mission with various little kind of laser things that it'll shoot at you. It does also have a hatch that opens up and drops enemies. And unsurprisingly, much like other enemies that do that, that is the main weak point of the Walking Fortress. You can destroy some of the other parts of it that'll shoot the lasers and such before that, but in order to ultimately bring down the entire Walking Fortress, you have to shoot the hatch when it opens up. Okay, so this might actually be our biggest gap between missions that introduce new enemies or, involve defeating an enemy that you couldn't before or anything like that. Anyway, Mission 42, we get to what's called the Spider King. It's a lot like the other spiders, except it's like way, way bigger. And unsurprisingly, deals more damage because of that. Also, I think it has a bit of a longer range as a result of that. My main strategy for defeating the Spider King in this mission was to just snipe it from super duper long range before it could even really get close enough to do anything. And then worry about taking out the smaller enemies that were around it. Alright, so we talked about the Ant Queen a little while ago. Now we have the Ant King. I'm going to air quote king, because, again, much like the Spider King, this is really just a larger, more damaging version of the regular black ant. It attacks the same kind of way. It just is bigger and deals more damage. The strategy was kind of similar to that of the Spider King, except this is honestly, in my opinion, even less dangerous because it's an ant variant as opposed to a spider. It doesn't have the webs that slow you down or anything like that. It just has those basic attacks that it uses. Oh, and you can find it in Mission 47, at least the first time. I don't know if there are too many other missions that have any other ant kings. Well, we had red ants, now we have red gunships in Mission 49. Honestly, the quantity of these is low enough that they really aren't that much of a problem. I mean, if your weapons are significantly low powered and or you end up taking a really long time to take them down, there's a chance of losing to them. But I honestly found this mission quite easy. Just same general strategy as the other gunships. Missiles are your best friend here. And then some other mid to long range weapon where you can hit them without them being right up in your face. Because for the most part, they're not going to be right up in your face. They're going to be at a little bit of a distance shooting lasers at you, much like the other gunships. Okay, so this is the other variant of that Valak that I mentioned earlier. And I realize that's kind of called a Dino Mech. This is known as Mecha Valak, which would be a bit redundant referring to that as like a Mecha Dino Mech, but I digress. Really the main change with this one, which appears in Mission 50, very close to the end of the game, is that instead of regular arms and breathing fire, it has like giant robotic cannon arm things that it shoots just a big laser beam blast thing. I'm not really sure how else to describe it. It's just a giant laser attack, which does take a little while to charge, so it doesn't attack all that frequently. Otherwise, though, this thing has similar mobility to the regular Valak. You still want to take the same general kind of approach, though. You just gotta watch out for lasers instead of fire breath. And last, but certainly not least, we have Mission 52, the final mission of the game, in which you actually get to defeat the mothership. Now, it does take a couple of different forms throughout the mission. There's various ways that it produces different kinds of lasers and things like that. It's all just like a big, epic way to wrap up the game. And, like, other than the one moment where I got basically, like, insta-killed by its largest laser attack, it really just, it felt epic, the entire battle. Now, I'm not entirely sure what to say to avoid the giant insta-kill laser attack, other than, like, I guess you just have to not be in a certain area when it does that. So, it's obviously directly underneath it would not be a great place to be right then. But I think there's also other areas that that attack can hit, so I have some difficulty giving tips on how to make sure that you avoid that. But otherwise, most of the weak points pretty much come out from underneath the mothership. A lot like the, you know, opening hatch weak points from some of the other enemies we've seen. It's just, when that isn't opened up, you also have other targets that you can shoot at. Because they're shooting lasers at you, you also have the ability to shoot back at those and potentially get rid of some of them, so you're not taking quite as much damage the entire time. ultimately, though, like, you really gotta be watching out for what all this thing can throw at you, because it is a doozy of a battle. But again, really epic way to wrap up the game. Also, just realize you could call this thing a Ravager Bestiary of sorts, even though they're not all necessarily beasts to really call it that, but whatever. Anyway, so that does it for the video, whatever you want to call it. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a like, share it with others if you think it'd help them out. Yeah, this was a bit of a different kind of thing. I didn't feel like highlights were quite appropriate for this, because really the highlights were the enemies for the most part. I also didn't want to just do like a death compilation, because there were too many. And there were a lot of them that happened that I didn't even put in my eventual, video edits and whatnot. So, anyway, I don't know. Just trying to keep it fresh with some of these compilation video things. So anyway, yeah. That'll do it for this one. I've got like 2 or 3 other games to catch up on with similar types of videos. I think Insect Armageddon, I'm just going to do the same style of video. Maybe even compare the enemies a little bit between this game and that one. But let me know what you think about that idea down in the comments section if you have any thoughts on the matter. But yeah. On the whole, you know the drill. Like, share, subscribe, click the bell, all that good stuff. If you're on a different platform viewing this, do whatever's appropriate for that. All the support is appreciated. Make sure you look down in the description to get info on social media pages and stuff like that. I've got a Discord server where you can keep up with my videos if, like, the, YouTube notification thing isn't working right for you. Or whatever equivalent. Other social media platforms get a lot of my content as well. There's maybe even some in-between stuff here and there that doesn't always make it to YouTube, including just more casual, not-so-recorded live streams that I do. So those are here, but you can also find those on Twitch. As of recording this, I just recently, hit the marks for Twitch affiliate, so yay for that. Can actually maybe start making a little money off of some things that I'm doing here. But anyway, also, maybe upcoming job change situation could help with having more time to work on videos of this type. But anyway, there's some changes that are going to be coming in the near future, if they haven't already. So, be on the lookout for that. But this is not an announcement video kind of thing, so let me just wrap this all up. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you soon for another video. But whatever the case is, till next time, stay cool, people.